where are you, Steve?
I got
Did they get a
That's
quorum?
what this is.
I don't know why Kyle didn't call Bailey because it needed to be officially on the job. Oh, and Bowie Jack.
He resigned today.
He did.
I don't know.
Yes.
It is.
We just got
Did you
like a
finally-
message that said
Did
official
you pull it up?
resignation.
No, I didn't.
Today.
I couldn't get it this
Susan
morning.
Wise and Harold
Yeah,
Payne.
so
Yeah,
right now
I
I'm
checked your
missing.
email.
So it's just me.
Well, you're a computer.
No, it's not my computer, it's me.
Which,
Maybe it was bad. You know, maybe old bad.
I just took them out today.
I mean, I guess the good part is all the decisions are made.
yeah.
There's nothing to vote on.
Should I
leave my Robert's rules today? Today.
You can make whatever motion you want.
Oh, then we
If you
can
so
vote on it, right?
Trina, call me.
Call you.
Yeah, call me.
Why?
Okay.
Well, everybody gets on their cell phones.
Oh.
They're a little shaky, but getting better. We're implementing a new plan, so.
Can't you get,
I
could you
moved
like,
from geology to mine planning.
I don't have your number, girl.
I know.
Talking to these guys, was that
I'm
yesterday?
confused.
Yeah, yesterday.
Right.
about
I'm
the Gantt
confused.
charts. We have
Confused.
this
I know.
program
Very
Completely schedules out the mine crews and everything, like,
oh, I better turn my
for
phone.
years. Like, and it gets,
Share it with the city.
yeah.
Oh, no, I know about Gantt charts.
I tell you what, very soon.
Yeah, it's quite
We are
the,
such a hoot.
it's quite the undertaking that they're trying to do.
Our new names are Cagney and Lacey. Or Rip and Rasp.
That's a good one.
Rip and Rasp. Or Rip and Rasp.
More like
Harold Lee and, yeah, I mean,
And Rosalie had line dancing again last night. I keep forgetting to do it. I wanna go, but I forget. And there's more of that information.
like with Rick's resignation.
Who pays for
not
preserving that?
Yeah.
Tell everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rose.
Yeah, if you need anything, yes,
That doesn't make, that doesn't
She was
reduce.
very honest about it. She doesn't.
I thought it was like
Not-
ex
not that
mayor, I'm
we
like, what
need-
that
She gets
happen?
paid set amount
Yeah.
for doing teaching, and it's set up.
Yeah, you do know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know way to
You're
do
not
that.
surprised, don't look surprised. Anyway, it's $5 a day, and she had 48 people last week. Now, when I talked to her on Wednesday after last week, she said she already had 42 people signed up for last week. And she gets paid a certain amount to come and teach every February, every Tuesday in February. And, cause I asked her, I said, you know, what does it cost to reserve this auditorium? So then,
Yeah.
over and above what she gets paid,
Well, I take that back, the only thing that's on
I
that
would
is
assume she already
Under
pays.
some video.
I can
Where's that?
make the notice.
Deposits? I don't know.
Everybody's.
Inquiring minds
I
might
had a
have
good
done.
chief of police who frequented these, he said, I didn't know any of these machines.
What if we have to approve it, and then we get submitted to the website? I don't know what the.
preferred.
Yeah, also makes sense. Yeah, just so it's.
I am there.
I was just curious.
I don't think there's any law, but procedurally required.
Yeah.
Most of the towers.
Because that's what's going to.
Person invited me
Right,
today.
yeah, like my Rick's in the back.
Facebook
He's
page,
even
you said,
got like things or anything.
oh, the camera?
It wasn't just a little bit.
Lisa sent them all out, so she's gone and she hasn't said, she's been,
They were calling.
she was gone yesterday and part of today doing stuff, so I haven't touched base with her.
Video machine. Oh, yeah. They had video
And there's
cameras.
more to that.
They had to go around the machine.
I'll have to ask Catherine.
And then
Yeah,
I supplied the remote
No,
control.
I did order
Hooked up on the
cookies
machine. I didn't hook
from
them up.
Amazon,
Oh, yeah.
the individually wrapped up in service,
Second page.
Yeah.
You can have every
And
example.
so
basically.
they can
what they
grab
do
and
is
go and
from
when it shows up.
tomorrow they
You can have it
go
assigned.
I have coffee.
Oh, I can.
Lisa's
Yeah,
got
you
a
said I'm
card,
walking back
and
over
I was
here.
gonna get the little bottles of water.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Ah,
Everybody
so-
around me. Ow.
Just press button and reset it.
You got it for us.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're.
I wonder, you know, when I
That's
said that
fine.
the other night about, couldn't hear me, but I heard you laugh.
Mr. Lynn, sit down and we'll get started.
We thought yes, yeah.
Well,
I made that up, but you can use it. I told Sue she has permission.
Okay, it is 6:18. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order now. For roll, we are missing Mr. Harold Hamilton. I received an email and the city administrator Burbridge received an email that Rick Letchworth has officially resigned. So we will have a, absent spot on the board until we have recommendation from the board and from the mayor, at a later time. So we will fill that spot later, but that will be open for this meeting at least. So, with everybody else, we have Mr. David Weiss, Trina Pott, Catherine Dent, and Mr. Hambacker joining us. I do have, so we'll move forward with the approval of the minutes. I do have one note to make. I did see that we had amended in the minutes of the meeting. It does say the minutes of October 11th were modified, and a motion was made and seconded to amend the meeting, amend the meeting minutes. Sorry, I'm having tongue-tied here. However, the one thing that I don't see is what did we, does anybody remember what we amended them to?
Yes, that was from the, was that from? I couldn't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I
couldn't
can't
either.
either.
That wasn't the 1,000 to 220, that's something else.
Yeah, that was a motion that was
That's
amended.
the, yeah, right.
Yeah, but there was a change to the minutes.
I'll go back and put on the right one, but there's like 30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
if I have
couldn't
them pulled
recall.
up in front of me,
If you
you want me to see if I can find them real quick? Sure.
Yeah, might as well. It was the only thing I really had about the minutes here.
Was it the October minutes?
It was the October 11th minutes. Yeah. To amend the minutes of October 11th, and we had a motion that carried. However, I do not know what necessarily we amended. And it may come to.
What I'm gonna say to Trina, she said something about, did she make a mistake there? So I'm gonna say, no, you own it.
And we can still approve the minutes, I believe, but I would say
Just wanna know it.
Yeah,
It's not there.
yeah, I don't see any kind of
Right, cause this was from the last packet, so
Yeah.
these wouldn't, and so that's why we just need to make sure we capture
Yeah, if we can
what
capture.
amendments are made, so that we can go back and change.
Yeah,
them.
whenever we
Yeah.
have that kind of stuff, if we can do that in the future, that'd be great, but we can still approve these.
You want a motion to approve them?
Yeah, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, motion is on the board to approve the minutes from January 10th. Do I have a second?
Toward the bottom of the page.
A second.
Okay. Catherine has seconded. All in favor? All opposed? All right, motion will carry, minutes are approved. If we find anything forward, I'll bring it up. If we can find anything out about what the amendment was. Yeah, we might take a look. Yeah, so, we'll go ahead and move on. The next one is the financial and reports and updates. So Stacy, you wanna take it away?
Okay, same reports you're used to seeing. This is, shows utility usage and revenues. And it shows the prior 2 years, and then July to January of last fiscal year, and then July to January of this fiscal year.
He's been here for.
So year to date, we're, kilowatt hours sold, we're at a little over 30 million kilowatt hours. That is down compared to the same time frame as last year. Electric revenues billed were a little over 4.2 million, with 164,000 of that being the availability fee. So far, year to date, we have collected just over $4 million. Water consumption, we billed out a little over 72 million gallons. That is down quite a bit compared to the same time frame as last year. Water revenues billed is at 481,000, with 92,000 of that being the base rate. Year to date, we have collected for around 457,000 of water revenues. On sewer consumption, we billed out just a little over 65 million gallons. We billed around 625,000, with 89,000 of that being the base rate, and we've collected almost 627,000.
Yeah, for reference, we are about 58.33% of the way throughout the year, so if you're looking at the percentage of budgets on the right side, we're still pretty well on the mark. We're not significantly off on any of them.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, so the top section there shows the revenues, again, 2 prior years, then last year's July to January, what we have budgeted, and then year to date, which is July through January of this year. So total revenues year to date, almost at 4.6 million. Overall expenditures, almost 3.3 million. So it brings us to surplus of 698,000 at this time. That's electric. And then the next few slides are the details within each category. So on the expenditures, the overall totals, the only line that shows a little bit high for this time is capital improvements. And as we discussed in previous meetings, that's because of the COP payments we make in November. We make 2 payments a year, and the one we make in November is pretty large.
And we're 5 months from the end of the fiscal year, aren't we?
Mhm.
Yeah.
5 more months to go.
Yeah, so on the right side, if you're looking, 58% is around what we're looking at here. And the only question I have, there's obviously one that's kind of small in comparison to some of the larger payments, but that chargeback item fee, do we know what that is?
Yes, that is return checks, but it's just a timing issue. It's when they hit the bank, but we've not made a correction in our system yet. So
Okay.
that will actually go away when we make our correction, and I can reconcile it with the bank.
Okay,
So it's just a carryover.
yeah, I was just 3,000%.
Right.
And I was looking back and I just didn't see, I saw, we had like $26 July, and like
Right,
400,
Yeah.
468 last
That's
year, so I was
probably
like,
why.
3,000 was odd to me.
Ready?
Yep, anybody need more time? Okay,
Okay, one more, I believe.
yeah, the R&D fund.
Yes, okay, electric DNR fund, which is the replacement fund. So we've had some interest revenue, and then we've purchased some transformers, and then the hydro truck has come out of that. That's all on that one so far. Then on, the next one is electric reserve account, or fund. Again, we see we have some interest revenue. And then you scroll down to the bottom.
Yeah, reserve goal.
Yes, it shows what, based upon what we have budgeted, the ending fund balance is gonna be almost 1.3. Our reserve goal is a little over 1.3. So we're gonna be short, almost $30,000 from reaching our goal.
No, not since we put this in like, what, a year and a half ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, so, we caught up on that very fast.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Have we used that hydrovac truck yet?
We
A
have,
number of times.
we've used it several times. The latest time was when we did the culvert replacement at, the intersection of Rolla Road and MacArthur. It required a 6-foot dig down roughly on one side and 8 foot on the other. It's about, how wide is the street there, Josh, 40?
It's pretty close to it.
And so it cut the job time by half. What would have been a 2-day job, it cut down to 1 day.
Okay.
And so, and we've actually got it slated to use, if the locates are in, it'll either be Friday this week or Monday next week.
So do you believe that that truck is going to pay for itself?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just in say labor alone, because it's being utilized, 3 days a week.
Okay.
At minimum, and sometimes, and there's some jobs coming up that it'll be utilized a lot more, so absolutely worth it.
Good to hear. Okay, next slide. I see it.
Okay, this next slide is a graph that shows a month by month comparison of what we are paying for our power. That comes from, we pay MPUA. The yellow being this fiscal year, and the gray being last fiscal year. So the numbers in red at the top.
Sorry, I'm trying to get where it shows the whole thing, and unfortunately I can't.
Just a little bit down, yeah. That'll be fine.
Close enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so July, August, October, and January, we paid less, and then the other months, September, November, December, and February, we paid more, so February came in quite a bit more. But last year, January, we paid, that 500,000, where this year is where we paid the 500,000.
It's probably due to that cold snap we just had, because everybody was running heaters.
Right, so year to date, we have paid 43,000 less than the same time frame as last year.
Okay.
That's good. So
Did we
here's-
come close to a peak demand in any of that cold
Yeah, I
time?
got that.
How close?
We'll discuss that.
We'll get there.
All right.
We did set a new peak.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, no questions?
Okay, so with the water fund, water total revenues are around 530,000. And expenditures coming in around 514,000, with a surplus of 16,000. Just some expenditures that are running a little bit high, the miscellaneous category. That is mostly just due to one-time annual payments.
Where are you at? Miscellaneous. Oh, here,
Yeah,
okay.
Then you next go down just a little bit more, then under utilities, the electric is running a little bit high, but it's not substantial, it was only at 64% of the budget. And then, of course, the capital improvement, again, that's due to the CLP payment that we've made. So we have the CLP payment, and also, I think the backhoe lease, so that's showing 100%.
Right,
So, yeah.
right.
Okay, the water replacement fund. Again, we've had some interest revenue, we've also had some grant revenues. That would be for the well, the design for the new well and power. And then for expenses, we've had the new well design, and then the hydrovac truck also.
Is everybody ready to move forward? Okay.
Okay, then the water reserve fund, again, just some interest revenues come in. And if you scroll down again, where we estimate the ending fund balance based upon what we budgeted, almost 700,000. Our reserve goal is almost 206,000, so we have a surplus of 489,000 in our water fund. Water reserve fund. Okay, moving on to sewer. So revenues year to date are 645,000, with expenditures coming in at 649,000. A deficit of 4,000, but if you compare it to the same time frame as last year, we were at 15,000 deficit. That is due to the COP payment, it's 247,000 that we paid out in November. So that 4,000 should reduce within the next month or so. We should start seeing a positive number.
good, I'm trying to see something.
Can I ask a question? What is the COP payment again?
She'll go over that here in a second.
So
This is
certificate of deposit, so it's debt financing for improvements, and so we're talking about the sewer fund, so those were previous improvements that were made to the wastewater treatment plant.
And we're just paying it back.
Right. Yeah, phase one.
It's better than
And we're
So-
currently starting
So it's
phase two.
1,000 now.
We're still paying for the first one.
So are we going to finish paying for phase one before we start two?
No, we can't, I mean, we don't have a way to do that.
So we're gonna be paying on two phases at the same time?
We will. Yes.
There's an EPA deadline for compliance that can't be.
Right, yeah, it's not an option for us.
I see.
Yeah, it was fought for
Right.
10 years.
So-
To try to get a variance, which changes the regulations, but unfortunately they denied the variance.
So for phase one, it was paid for through the COPs, certificates of deposit. Phase two, we had a $5 million grant, it was ARPA funds, so we received that, now we get into phase 2A and 2B. The grant phase pays for the bulk of 2A, and then the sewer bond that was passed about a year ago, that is what funds phase 2B.
Any questions on the sewer fund?
Move on. I'm not trying to rush you guys, I just,
Yeah, I'm clear to move on as long as the utility committee is.
Okay, the sewer replacement fund, again, we've had some grant revenue and some bank interest that came in. And expenditures, we've had expenses for the sewer upgrade, which is part of the grant. And then the hydrovac truck, we are at a deficit of 84,000, but we are waiting for a payment to come in, for the grant. It has actually come in, but it didn't hit January numbers, it'll hit February numbers. Okay, and the sewer reserve fund, we've had a little bit of interest come in on that fund. And then again, at the bottom, ending fund balance, based on what we're budgeting of 179,000, our reserve goal should be 273,000. We're showing a deficit at 94,000 in our reserve goal, reserve fund. And this is just another look at what we've already seen, shows your beginning balances of each fund, then the revenues, expenditures, and this is year-to-date through the end of January, and then your ending fund balances there on the right.
So is this saying we've already done most of the transfers out?
We did
or
half.
is-
we did mid-year transfers.
Okay, mid-year's transfers.
It's only half.
And where are those transfers out going to?
Okay, so for electric, so 272,000 went to the electric reserve fund, and then 300,000 went to the general fund.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay,
Is there
I see how that works out.
Is there some place where it shows what the general fund, where that money goes to?
Not at this
here.
meeting, at a finance meeting, they have those, whenever they have those meetings, and they print out the full balance sheet, the general fund is in those. But since this one has to deal, because we print the entire thing out, it is massive. But you can go back on the City of Salem, meeting, packets, and if you go to the finance committee meeting, the packets for the general fund and what those are in and out of are there.
Yeah.
That's where I look.
Right, June?
Yeah,
Well, our budget's also on the
Right, the
website
budget's
under the
posted.
finance.
yeah, the budget's also
Finance
posted
tab,
there.
you can look at the budget.
But yeah, for most reason, I typically go to the packets.
showed this slide our last meeting, it's just the reserve fund balance history. Just kinda shows you where we were in 2020 through current. What we budgeted to be at in 2024, and then, our goal, and then where we're either over or short.
And this is anticipated over or short at the end of the year or currently?
No, the end of the year,
The end of the
based
year,
upon what
correct.
we've budgeted for this fiscal year.
Alright, the fun small,
Okay.
yeah, this one.
Yeah, this just is rolling 12 months. If we compare, when we, look to see if rates need to go up or down, we always compare the past 12 months. So this is why I show a 12-month rolling history. So as of right now, I think we're at 0.07.
Yeah, it's 0.0737. So
Right.
down there in the bottom right
The
of the
kind of
packet,
But
it
rolling
shows
December to
that's-
December, we're paying 3% more. Right.
Yeah.
As of right now. Of course, that changes every month.
So you asked Mr. Hambecker about setting a new peak. So, this doesn't show it
So
yet.
in November,
Yeah,
we were
I-
at 13.9.
13.9. Then we dropped down, cause November was the last month in that 12-month period with a 13.9 demand. We dropped down then to 12.3. And then in February, with that really cold week or so, we went back up to 12.9. So we didn't,
This brings a question up that I asked Jennifer a month or so ago, I think, and I was curious as to, when we look at our residential amounts that we consume, kilowatt hours, and when we look at our business amounts consumed kilowatt hours, I'm interested in that difference, because if the business side of our community is very close to the residential side of our community, when it comes to establishing a peak, the residential side may not have a whole lot to do with whether we can achieve reducing that peak. And I think that's an interesting question. Maybe I'm the only one that has that question, but, I mean, I think we can, everything we print is to affect the residential side. We don't do anything to affect the business side.
oh, you mean as far as conservation?
No,
type of messaging, or-
as to the consumption.
Right.
I'm interested in what the consumption is for the residential side versus the consumption for the business. If those are equivalent, I mean, I don't have any idea whether they're equivalent or not. But when I look at Craig's and some of the other facilities, they consume a heck of a lot more than I do at home. And I would think that the residential side might be a substantial portion of our consumption. We're only trying to influence the residential side. So that number, for me, that's winds up being an interesting number. Is it for anybody else, or, I mean, how do we prevent ourselves from hitting another peak? We've talked about this at every meeting, it seems like I bring this up.
Well,
But-
but part of it is too, we will always have a peak.
Well, I know
I mean,
we're
we
always
just
gonna
want it
have a
to be
peak,
lower,
but
right.
if we hit a cold spell and we go back to a
Right.
1.3 million
Right.
for a February, we sure in the heck don't wanna do that.
Right,
Yeah, because it affects the whole year.
right.
And, when the people are already complaining about our rates, we don't wanna hit peaks, we wanna do everything we possibly can to reduce that.
Right.
And I don't know that we're achieving anything there because we just hit one. And I thought, well, we're gonna hit February, and I just had this feeling, we're gonna hit a new peak and
Yeah, with the.
new rate
So,
for a whole year.
if I can back up for just a second, I wanna go back to the graph, forgive me. 'Cause I
Well,
wanna-
first of all, can I get that information?
I mean, you
So-
can pull it for next meeting, I think,
Yeah, so when we took a look, we had actual consumption and things like that.
Right,
Well,
I
we
thought
had
we had
rates and
looked at
stuff
them
on the
before, right,
COS, yeah,
right.
so when we were looking at changing the rates,
Right.
we were looking at accounts and I
right, how
think
many were
part-
residential and at what rates is,
Yeah, and what rates,
So
cause
we
we
can
were
pull
looking
it.
at commercial
We'll-
rates and we were
it'll
looking
take a
at,
little bit.
when we were looking at rate adjustments last year. I don't know if that had consumption on it, though. I know it had demand
It would've-
charges,
I
but,
think it-
Yeah,
It did, it had to have
demand
had
charges,
consumption
but-
so that we could figure out what those
Right.
totals were.
yeah, that's right, so yeah, we do have it
So
for
we have
kind of
it.
like a year, at least a base summary
So,
back
I
then.
mean, we can try to pull that for next meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I
And then you
think
can-
it'd be an interesting number.
yeah, and I can send it to you before that as well.
Okay.
But what I wanted to say, so we're talking about the peaks, okay, so this was our peak just last month, so where the bulk of that cold snap hit.
Right.
Okay, so, you know, when we talk about comparing it to the February 2021 event, where we had all that extra expense,
Sure,
this is February 2021 right here. Look how much less that is.
right.
And so it's a factor of not just being a cold snap where everyone's
Well, we've
using
got
more.
new industry.
Well,
We've got a
no,
number
but
of
it's not
things.
just that. The bigger factor that played into February 2021 was what was going on the grid and in the markets
Oh, sure.
nationally.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, I
So-
know that.
So, I mean, it's not just what we're doing or not doing for
Right.
consumption. We're really tied to what's going on on a national scale. And we don't have any control over what happens there. So,
But the peak is a factor.
it is a factor.
And it's less than a penny, I know, and it's a
Well,
factor that's
but
intense
The
sometimes.
plus side is that we still reduced it
By
by an
1,000.
entire, right.
Yeah, it was
We went from
8%.
13.9 to 12.9,
Yeah,
so
so-
it is lower than what we were paying all last year.
And hopefully, I'm not gonna
Right.
jinx
Let's not get
anything,
another-
Right, right.
I'll just shut up. Shh.
While we're on this budget thing, I'd like to bring up one other thing, because I think for at least 6-7 years, I have talked about rates for different size meters on water, and I look at both our water meter, I look at our sewer and our water, and we never seem to bring that to a conclusion. But when you have a 6-inch line,
Right.
every city around us
Does it.
charges a different rate.
Right.
We charge the same rate for a residential person with a 5/8" line to a 3/4 inch line
Right.
that we do for a 6-inch line or 4. I don't think we have any 6-inch lines, but we have 4-inch lines, 3. And we need to address that.
And-
We
and I
just keep
agree,
postponing that.
But the reason it got postponed this most recent time was because we do have some rate studies coming up that will assist us in looking at that. To have an outside entity who does that, who factors in what needs to be considered for future costs, for capital improvements, for equipment, all of that. And all of that needs to go into that.
And I think there's a fairness there. I'd like to hear the argument if there's not, because when you look at the line that has to feed, a McDonald's or
Right.
Yeah, it's much
a
larger.
hotel.
Right.
Yeah, there are larger meters, larger lines, there's a greater expense there, but
I
yet
agree-
they
I
pay
agree
the
with
same
you.
service
Yeah.
I
availability.
just-
Yeah, the last time, I remember us talking about this, cause yeah, we had, some pretty thorough rate studies coming. And that's why we were holding off, cause we
Right.
wanted to see what the rate study showed in terms of what we're doing versus what in an outside world, look at what we, and what we should be charging. So that's why I got, cause we can change the rates now and then have, and basically need to change the rates
Right.
again here in
Yeah, this
6 months.
isn't
We
the
can,
residential
but-
rate, the residential people, we hear enough discussion on the high rates that we pay, and this is not affecting them.
No.
It will affect them, I guess, if I go to McDonald's, my hamburger's gonna cost, I know my ice creams went up considerably.
Well,
when
the
we have a
other,
rate change,
the other
so.
flip side of that though too, is that we have quite a few residential, and this is my understanding, residential houses that have larger meters on them
Yeah.
right now, that if we went to a graduated scale of what you pay based on meter size, all of a sudden, we're gonna be flooded, the city's gonna be flooded with requests to change the meters to something
Well,
smaller.
that's,
And so that's
I don't think
another
that,
cost
I don't think
factor.
that's a reality, really. As long as that rate change is not for anything 2 inches or below. I think people that watered their lawn, or they had their swimming pools or whatever, when they're pulling enough water to water the lawn, and I could give you a number of examples, but I don't wanna use names. And they put in a 2-inch line in order to feed their house and to feed their lawn. So if our rate changes are for the industrial side of it, not the residential side of it, the industrial side, I think, is always above 2-inch lines. right now, we have a rate change, I mean, no rates, everybody pays 8. But if it was for 3, I don't even know if there are 3-inch lines, on the
Yeah,
water
we don't-
side,
we don't
or
have our
electric
water
side.
right here. Yeah.
I think we have no 6s, but we have 4s, then 3s, and 2s, and then whatever's below.
And like I said, when we get to that point of the rate setting, we can absolutely ask that that be looked at, so.
So,
That's it for this.
yeah, so that's it for that. Back to the electric, it is nice that we have an 8% reduction in the demand, and let's hope that stays. I suppose we'll move on to item B here, the utility billing and payments updates. Do we have any?
We emailed bills this time with our billing cycle. The emails went through, but Inco did not have the overlay on our bills, so they don't have no name or anything. Like, if you got a bill emailed to you, it looked like this,
Right.
when it should look like this.
Oh,
doesn't
I
have
see,
any-
yeah, it doesn't have the,
So they were supposed to have that fixed, so we'll email them again this time and make sure the overlay's on it and everything, then we should be able to open it up to people being able to get their bills emailed. But they did go through this time, they just gotta put the overlay on them. We got an email with some questions in it about budget billing and stuff. Wanna know if we did budget billing, we did for a while, when we pulled those people out. Some of them owed money, we didn't really like that, so we were doing a fixed budget billing. We're gonna switch that over to a running budget billing, cause it factors in like rate changes or seasonal changes, even, just the way people do things in their house, usage patterns, stuff like that, all that's factored into a running one. Cause it does your current bill plus your previous 11 bills. On the fixed, it just takes your last 12 bills and averages it out, and that's never
it for me,
changes.
yeah.
So we're looking at that. One of the other questions was if we had any special billing for people over 55, I'm guessing that's a discount, is what they were wanting to know. The only discount we have is on the trash. For people 62 or over, they save $1. The last question was, do we do contracts to help people with their utilities? We do contracts, we usually take the amount that they owed, that they can't pay, and we divide that by 12, and then they'll pay 12 payments on the next 12 bills. The only thing with that is you can only have one at a time.
What about that February, the cold February, are we caught up with all those people? Are we still doing budget billing for them?
Payment plans, you mean?
Yeah, the payment plan for February.
For for 2021, you're talking about the February
we
relief
were
payment?
many thousands behind.
We probably still have some on there because finishing them up.
Did we lose some of those where we got no payment whatsoever? Because they left the area?
I don't have
say
that
so.
reconciled yet, yeah.
Tax write-off.
And one other question, when it comes to, we had that article in the paper on net metering. And, is the net metering, what are we doing in terms of making sure that net meter, cause the meters are all corrected now, right? The
Yes,
meters
they're-
are all,
They're spitting out different reads now than what they were
but
previously.
I mean, in terms of the payment, and if they're producing more, I mean, it's cold months, so I don't think we're producing more, but are we, having,
So the
any
meters
payback?
have been programmed, reprogrammed, okay,
Right.
so that they're spitting out the separate numbers like we need. The issue that we had then was the billing software can't do the net metering, it can't do those calculations.
Can't we
So-
do that by hand?
Well, we are, but it took some time to get us to that point, and we're at that point now. Okay, for these next bills should have those, it should be corrected and credits should be issued. So the ones that will come out end of next week.
I mean, that was the reason I gave the article out, because it displays almost every situation that you have in terms of overproduction, less production,
And it's
everything.
never been an issue of not understanding how net metering works, it's not having the software and the systems
Yeah.
that can
Well,
put out the right information for
but
us.
my point is, we only have, I think, 3 people in town that do that.
Right now,
So
yes.
therefore, we could do that by hand.
for now.
for now. So the next bill that comes out then would have that net billing in mind for those three people.
Yes. Now, it's not gonna look like companies or utility places that have net metering software.
Yeah,
It's not
so
gonna
I
look
don't
like those
expect it
bills.
to appear on their bill, like the
Right.
bill that was just.
Right, it'll
It
show
could
as a
be
credit.
handwritten in on those three people if they wanted.
I mean, it'll just show as a constant credit, like if they've generated more,
Right.
or I should say not generated, if they have put more back on the city system,
Yeah.
it'll show as a credit, so
Right.
you have whatever kilowatt hours times that avoided fuel cost.
And have we established what that rate is?
Yes,
I
it's
mean,
on,
this is 2.5 on the Intercounty Electric. Ours was?
we get it every month, it's a different amount. It's on the bottom of our bills that we get from MPUA.
No, the payback, the amount that we're
Correct.
paying if we produce more.
Correct, that's what I'm
Why,
talking about.
why is that a variable amount? Why can't that just be a 2.5 cents like Intercounty Electric does, or 3 cents? But it's this constant amount, so you're not changing it every day depending on, because it's always less than what we're actually paying for electricity anyway.
Right, okay, so, to date, this board hasn't discussed or even said
No,
they wanted to
that's what I was
discuss
saying.
establishing that.
It's something we have to establish. If we haven't established, it's something that we need on the agenda, so we don't want it to be a variable.
Well, I
right?
mean, that
Do
is
we?
an option per state statute, you can either set a rate, or you can just go with your variable rate that you're actually charged each
Well,
month.
I would think in terms of software, the easiest way to do it would be
But
to
it
establish
doesn't
a
run
rate.
through the software.
Right now it can't.
Right, and we don't have in our budget to purchase new billing software, so that's not in the immediate future.
Okay, well then it would make it much, much easier on the staff if it was a constant rate.
I mean, not necessarily. If we're doing the hand calculations anyway, we have the data available to us every month on our MPUA bill.
Okay, going back to this argument, why would we not want to establish a constant rate rather than having a variable? Because our rate is always less than what we're paying for it anyway,
Right,
considerably less. I mean, the benefit for the people that have solar panels is the fact that they're not paying the 13.6 cents.
right.
So, if they're producing more, I mean, they're saving 13.6 cents.
Right, yeah.
So therefore, if it cost us like, I don't know, I think we've been paying 5, 6, whatever, what is the rate we've been paying lately? We just had it up
The
there.
all-in,
I forget. But it's above 2.5
It's 7.
cents.
it's 7 something.
Yeah, so we know it's way above 2.5 cents. So we need to have,
Here.
the board needs to
7.4.
establish a rate. To me, it would
I mean,
just
we
make
can
it
put it
a
on your agenda
constant
for
amount.
next month.
Yeah,
I
we can
just-
do that.
Okay.
No one has ever asked to put it on the
Okay,
agenda.
can we
Yeah.
put that on the agenda for next
Put
time?
it on the agenda.
Okay.
May I say something?
Uh,
That putting it at a fixed rate, it would not have to be on the bills other than somewhere. If you make it it's an adjustable rate, you're gonna have to print out on those 3 bills every month.
Okay, but the software won't print that rate on the bills.
Yeah.
Regardless of which way we do it,
Right,
we're
it
gonna have
doesn't
to
matter.
manually.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it has to be
on your-
manually calculated no matter whether it's a
That's
fixed
right.
rate or the variable rate
Right.
that we get
Doesn't
from
matter,
this. They
right.
just get a constant for the month, and then that is the multiplier. You know, it's still hand calculated either way, so
Well,
it
it's
doesn't really
something-
change.
Yeah, it's
But we-
something for us to think
Sure.
about before we get to
Yeah,
the
if you wanna
next
do
meeting,
a,
whether a fixed rate or a
fixed,
variable rate or.
net metering fixed rate discussion, is that what we would call it? I'm trying to think of a term for it.
Well, it's
Payback.
the
Yeah.
avoided fuel cost.
Avoided,
rate.
yeah, avoided fuel cost, right, okay. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, we can do that, I'll make a note to put that on there. Okay. Okay.
And do we have more than 3 people now?
No,
I know Mr. Knurk has been on for a long, long time. The gentleman in the back has been on for a long time. I thought there was a house that was over on the south side, sure.
Not that I know of.
No, we
There's
have
a-
three
there's
on
a few.
and one that is in the beginning stages of applying.
Okay. And then, okay, are there any other,
All I have.
so we did that. We had, I'm gonna ask a question, I know you may not be prepared, have we gotten anything about like the online billing portal and things
The
from?
prepaid
Yeah.
piece. So, of course, you're all aware there is the online payment of bills.
Mhm.
So that's through Acceleron, and that seems to be functioning pretty well. The automated phone system piece, they've got some backlog within one of their departments, so we keep hearing anytime, so we don't have that yet. So that's the phone pay portion. As far as launching the other piece, we're still working on kinks with the accounts between the Acceleron and our system. And right now we have too high of an error rate to launch it.
Okay,
I'm just,
so, yeah,
yeah.
so still trying to get the error rate down
Yeah.
and why that, and working out the kinks when we can,
yes.
okay.
Is that working out the kinks on our side? That's the other side, isn't it?
There's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of both between the two systems.
Yeah, it's Encode, right? It's between.
Well, between
is it-
Encode and Acceleron.
And Acceleron, yeah.
And so that's for the prepayment part of it. So we've got the 5 test accounts.
Yeah.
That have been running now for quite some time. Yeah,
Beyond the prepay stuff, so the stuff that they showed us where we were able to access online and see,
right,
like,
so
is there
even if
still?
you're traditional pay,
Yeah, the traditional
Right.
pay, are we, like, how, are we close to launching something of that, or? are
well, we
still-
can't launch any of that until the prepay portion's ready to go.
Okay, so we have to have the prepay portion before we
Yes.
can have all
Yes,
the fancy,
Right.
look at your rate and how much you're using for the day?
yes.
Okay. That's annoying, but okay.
I-
It's what it is.
I get it, yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay,
Anything else on that?
that's all I have. Does anybody else have any questions with, regarding item B here?
I have one question, and it's not anything to do with solar. The last 3 months, I have not gotten a utility bill from the city. If they're mailed, they're going someplace else, cause I don't get them. Now that, I haven't gotten, I didn't get October's, November's, December's,
You didn't get December's either?
I go up to City Hall and go get one.
Okay.
That's what you have to do.
And I'm just wondering what the problem is. Is it a problem with the bill, or is it a problem with the post office, or?
Well, and the reason I asked about December specifically, because I sent all 3 of our solar customers a letter.
I got the letter,
Okay, well, that was December's bill.
okay, there was
The
3
bill that
months
came out the
before
1st of
that.
December.
Okay, so this,
So the 3 months before that, I have no idea. So
Okay.
I,
that'll be something to,
Well,
Right.
when I go to City Hall, they've got a whole stack of electric bills that they're going through to see whether mine's in there.
gotcha, right.
We get a lot of them back in the mail, we have people that don't get them at all. All of ours get mailed in 4 big totes, they all go at once, but they don't all come back to you all. I don't know where they go. They'll
They
bring,
come back to you?
Sometimes.
if they're undeliverable, we get them back, yeah.
So be on the postal service.
Took a tag up there one day and had all different reasons why I don't bring them, they could care less.
But we also have some folks who call us asking where their bill is, and then a day or 2 later, a neighbor or somebody brings it to them.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
again, it's kind of out of our control once we deliver them to the post office. We don't have a way to track them, short of paying for a certified return receipt on every one of them, and that would be, yeah,
Yeah, I've got the churches, the Catholic churches
Gotcha.
twice
Right.
last year,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Will there be a site available where, you can log on to and find your bill and pay it online at some point?
once the entire prepay system is launched,
Yeah.
that will be available
Yeah, you can see what your
to
account has.
traditional pay customers.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we ask questions about that now, or we have to wait till the end? How are you handling this time?
And at this point, I think we'll go ahead and, since you aren't too far behind, you can ask questions if you have now. So go ahead.
Well, we're talking about the prepay system,
Yes.
and I'm one of them, many that have concerns about paying online. It's great. I was intending to pay online, but I'm not paying online when I can't see my bill. But it's Acceleron's issue and a little bit of the cities that's not jiving. But we've been doing this now for over a year.
I know.
And
I'm
have
aware.
we dished out money to this company that put on a wonderful show for us that has not followed through? Has that money already been paid and dispensed, or can we get out of this and find a company that can do it? Because there's a lot of companies doing online bill pay, and I don't think that it would have been this big of an issue with most of them. Did we get messed around with this, or what's going on?
So if we go back to the beginning of this is a contract that was signed before I stepped into this role, before
2018,
Stacy was
I believe.
here. I mean, yeah, I was back February of 21. Okay, well, there we go. That was an eventful month. So again, we were locked into this contract before any of us here were in our positions. We have talked with our attorney about it, and he has advised us that no, probably if we tried to break the contract, we'd probably have to buy it out, which is not something we can afford.
Yeah, I used to, for NCR Corporation, install accounts payable, accounts receivable systems for hospitals. We were done within a week or two.
Right.
Up and running.
Right.
So when I hear this kind of stuff, this is terrible.
Well, I agree.
Yeah,
But I mean,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, I'm just shocked at
Right.
this
Yeah.
company.
So, like I said, and so the other part to your question, Debbie, so when the full system launches, that's when traditional pay customers, such as yourself, will be able to log on, see your bill, and then be able to pay from there.
Yeah, but my wondering is, and it's taking forever.
Right.
And you don't know when that date is, even
I
right
don't.
now you don't.
I don't.
So at what point does the city have to step in here and do something about this than just, I mean, you paid for a service you're not getting.
Right.
As a customer, for any other business I'd be dealing with, I would be pitching a
We're
fit.
not- Have we been invoiced yet, Stacy?
No, not yet.
I was gonna say,
I
yeah,
would
we
think
haven't
there would
paid
be
for it
some
yet.
kind of repercussions.
Right.
That's why we looked into it with the attorney, because we were trying to figure out if there's a way, because
Right.
whenever they were advertising the service, it looked like it was gonna run flawlessly. We
Yeah.
got it, and there were so many errors, and they're like, oh, we'll clean it up, and then after, we're still sitting here, and there's still too many errors to actually launch, because we don't wanna have another thing with like the AMI systems.
Right, we
Whenever we
don't
had,
wanna do
we
that at all.
launched a system before it was ready, so we were gonna make sure we're gonna get underneath, X amount of account errors, something that's manageable to where we, if we do have errors, we can get through it. So we're
So
waiting.
If they're gonna bill you later, if they haven't billed you yet,
Correct.
I would.
And that's per the contract.
Okay, so I
Per
would
the
expect
contract.
that when they do bill you, if it's not working, the city won't pay it.
No.
Thank you.
We would not pay if we're not getting the service that was provided.
Right, in the contract, we start paying when the prepay launches. Okay? And they would love for us to launch it. And my response to I'll be honest, I'm probably the biggest hangup, because it's not working like it's supposed to, and so I'm not launching it. Because I don't want, like Alderman
Yeah,
Williams
we don't wanna
said,
have 200, 300 accounts every time a
Right.
bill goes out, that we have to have somebody take a look at it. It's gonna
Right.
take more time, it's gonna take.
and our staff may not be able to even explain
Yeah.
what's going on with it. So, to me, that's not an acceptable, percentage of margin of error.
And there's no way you could say, you know what,
Unfortunately, no, unless we.
We've talked with our attorney,
Well, how much would it cost?
even though you haven't paid anything?
we'd have to buy it out.
I
Well, what's
remember,
that
I remember there being a
Pardon me?
number,
The
cause we
contract was
asked about that.
I
was like-
understand, but they're not coming forward and doing their part of the contract.
I understand what you're saying.
Break it.
We have
I'm
talked-
just coming from my experience
Right.
in the field, that
Right.
It would have been nice if there was a timeline on.
It would have been very
contract.
nice, would have been very nice.
So, yeah. I wish I had an update, I wish I had some kind of like, on this date, you know, we'll get this. We're getting parts of it at least, I understand that, like, you know, you can pay online, but unfortunately you can't see what the bill is actually all in total. Until Encode and Acceleron work together and get the issue resolved, there's not much we can do. So, okay. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to item C here, the electric rate study.
And I mean, just like I went ahead and put on the agenda, the only update is we can't start that till the audit's completed.
Okay.
So audit should be before the Board of Aldermen, we hope, next meeting.
Okay. And then the electric rate study will start, or supposedly?
Right, supposedly, and we'll get with the outside consultant who does that, and then
Okay.
and so, because I'm sure the question will come up about cost of this rate study. The cost of this rate study, unless we choose to add additional pieces to it, again, this is only for the electric utility, this rate study is, it's covered with our membership
Yeah.
through MPUA. Okay, so no additional cost to that.
Any questions? Well, that one was fast. Item D.
Okay, MPEP updates. So we had the meeting in January. I know I had provided the, agenda for that meeting at our last meeting. So I just wanna do a quick update on that. So items that were on that agenda, unfortunately, the solar grant update, they've still not been notified of
I'll call you back.
any award. And I don't know exactly who that's from, it's through a federal entity, but they have not announced any awards, at least as of last month's meeting. Rate studies, we just talked about that. Distribution audits, so this is something new that, that our pool, so MPEP, the Mid-Missouri Municipal Power Energy Pool, we're part of that committee, that's our membership in MPUA. They have been talking about adding that similar to the rate studies, so that they would have their electric crews come and do an audit of our community, so each of the MPEP members. So an audit of our system, to see how it's functioning, if there are recommendations for places that we needed to improve or upgrade, infrastructure, things like that. And the idea is that it would be like the rate study, and that the cost would be covered within our membership. It wouldn't be an additional outside fee. The PURPA, I think I mentioned this last time, we talk about net metering customers, solar customers on the residential level. The PURPA agreements are for those that would be of a commercial nature and over 100,000 kilowatts. So those are the larger ones. They would still purchase electric that they need from us, but MPUA would buy whatever they generate directly, so it wouldn't work as a net metering customer for us, for our utility. And so the big topic, I had mentioned previously that MPEP was looking at purchasing shares in a coal-fired power plant. I can't go into why, because that was discussed in closed session. I can just say that it was voted to postpone that indefinitely at this point. There are other factors that play into that agreement to purchase, and that has been postponed indefinitely at this point. Let's see. Prepaid natural gas, that is something that they're continuing to look forward toward. The concept behind prepaid natural gas, and so another unit that MPEP is looking at ownership in is the Dogwood plant. That's the name of the generation plant. It's a natural gas fired plant. And so they're looking at a prepaid natural gas contract that would lock in a natural gas rate at a lower rate, and then you have it for X number of years. No matter what happens, fluctuations in the market, you have it at that lower negotiated rate. And the reason gas companies are willing to do that is because it's almost a guaranteed stream. They're not, it doesn't play by what's happening in the market. And that's
questions? If not, we'll go ahead and move forward to item E here, work reports from city employees. I don't know if you wanna.
Yeah, I don't know how Joe wants to handle this,
Yeah.
or how, just kind of some updates from utility crews.
Yeah, is there any?
Noteworthy.
If Josh, if you wanna cover the utility aspect, cause I haven't been dealing with.
Mainly on the electric side, we've just done maintenance related issues, service upgrades for homes that have upgrade from 60 amp to 100 amp or from 100 amp to 200 amp. We've done several of those this month. We had one utility pole somebody hit and broke on South MacArthur. Mainly just maintenance related. I don't know, as far as the water and sewer, can't speak for them. I know that they fixed several water leaks this month. But that's, the hydrovac truck's been used numerous times for various leaks that have cut down tremendously on time wise, and it's just handy to have.
As far as sewer and water goes, there were 3 issues reported in the last week. One was, of the 3, one was a line collapse. It was on the homeowner's side of it. There was another issue with a clean out. The crews were able to run water jet through it, got it fixed over at the corner of 3rd and Pershing. The other one was on 2nd Street at Henderson. And then we have another issue at 305 West Rolla Road. There's a work order in for a city installed clean out that's set to happen. That'll be another place to use that hydrovac truck. It makes the clean out installs take minutes. The city crews have been working on the council chambers. They've got that just all but completely stripped out and cleaned up. There were a lot of implements in the ceiling under the drop tile. There was a lot of black iron pipe. There was a heater from probably 1950 that was up in there. The light fixtures, everything that was held by the ceiling has been picked up and resuspended. Diffusers, things like that, everything is ready, just about ready to go back with construction, but they've been utilizing the nicer days to finish up the salt bins. Lloyd and his crew finished those up. They got the metals on the roofs, all the rafters repaired, sidewalls, back walls. And that was after having to go recover their own, or locate their own material that had been stolen off the job. So we were able to do that. I think here, just a second. We met with Archer this week over some of the phase improvements for wastewater treatment. There were some cost reductions. We don't know what that final number is gonna look like, but we're hoping for some improvements to that. We'd taken issue with some of the equipment that they had recommended. It had proven through tests that it wasn't as effective as what it needed to be. And so we're exploring a different route for better equipment, similar to a system that Rolla has. It's just it's a disc aerator. It's variable depth and allows for a better oxygenation in the oxidation ditch that the city runs. Street crew worked on the Frisco trailhead. The entrance area, Mr. Hambacker's getting ready to place a sign there. We'll probably have the work crews go out and set the poles for that tomorrow.
So Joe, if I can add,
Yes.
on the wastewater treatment plant, based on our meeting Tuesday, gosh, that was yesterday, that project should go out to bid this summer. And we'll see kind of what develops between now and then, but did they say July-ish, Joe?
Yes.
That they were thinking? And so they are hoping, Archer Elgin are hoping that, we will be able to bid phase 2A and 2B together, so that the work is happening simultaneously. So we are under some deadlines, for those who maybe weren't part of the conversation at the time. The ARPA grant, the $5 million for phase 2B, we need to have that, actually, we need to have it done, the actual construction, by the end of June 26th, so that there's time for kind of wrap up reporting, all of that stuff to close out the whole thing, by December 31st of 26.
A question that's probably way off base. On the city hall, when we put all the seats in by people donating for a seat and everything, is that used very much? There was gonna be a theater there,
Right.
there were gonna be shows there and everything.
Well,
But I don't pay a whole lot of attention to that. Is it used?
I mean, it is, this is off topic than utilities, but it's used about, what Melissa tells me is we have about 6 organizations a year who hold events there. As far as the theater part, we are waiting for Everything Cinema right now to get us in their schedule to come actually do the final connections on the projector. So we have the projector, we have the, electrical, we had to put a new electrical panel in for the projector, cause you don't wanna connect a modern projector to a 1939 electrical. So that's in and ready to go, we're just waiting on them to come connect it.
We also
And
have
when
the
it comes
plans
to,
for the,
water, oh, sorry.
we also have plans for the concession area. Sally and I went over those, was that last week? It's hard to remember because the weeks kind of run together, but for, improvements to the concession area so that we have a good ergonomic flow. You can go in, you buy your ticket, you can place an order, go around the corner, pick up your order, salt your popcorn, do whatever you gotta do. So those plans, we went over the blueprints of the building, and there was a meeting with an engineer several months back to make sure that we weren't interfering with anything that would be load bearing, and that if there was any structural concern, that there would be lintels placed above the openings. And so that's another step in the progress, so.
And whenever we ask the question to Mr. Nash about the fire hydrants, like the 70 that were leaking, I know I'm gonna do this again. It's always that there wasn't enough personnel to be correcting of those meters. I mean, the fire hydrants. Has that changed any? Are we making any progress on those 70 that are leaking?
So with that, it currently sets that we have 3 on the, I'm sorry, correct that, there's 5 total on sewer and water. 2 are at the plant full-time, and then, Donnie, Dave, and Chris do all the maintenance stuff, the collapsed lines, blowouts, all the things associated with residential sewer. And so one of the plans that I had discussed with the construction department is that as we move into next year, they were talking about being able to, maybe pass some of that work over, because some of the fire hydrants can be worked on, like, we have some that can be repaired and we can swap them out. And so if we get into some lag time, but when they tell you that you can't get anybody to hire on for the job.
Because I know the one that's by the house, my house, that one on South Grand, I mean, there's a stream of water that runs there. And I don't know if it's the heaviest stream of all of them that are leaking, or if it's a light stream, but it's a considerable amount of water that's leaking there.
Is it out of the fire hydrant?
When you put your ear to the fire hydrant, yes, you can hear water running, but I don't know if it's on the other side of the fire hydrant, or if it's a fire hydrant or something that's happening underneath the fire hydrant.
Okay.
But there's a lot of water running down that.
Okay, that was one that I wasn't aware of. If we've got one, and so that's one of those things that we can address. If I have, fire type issues, and literally like firefighting type issues, but issues that are pressing, that, pushing their way to the forefront, those are the ones that I try and get on to get taken care of.
And it may not be the heaviest one. I just know when I look at it, there's a pretty good stream of water that runs there.
Okay, I'll be by there in the morning, take a look at it.
Thank you.
I can't think of anything else from any of the other departments.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm at for right now.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee side? All right, we'll go ahead and move to the final here. Any questions, comments in general about public works or having to do with city utilities? I invite the floor as well for any citizens as well. Yes, ma'am.
I have have two questions. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them.
Sure.
The first one is going back to where the, reserves were short, and I didn't get to see the whole slide.
Sure.
Meaning that we're short on funding it, or what is that meaning?
Okay, so I can answer this. About a year and a half ago, we started putting in, we have had in the codes that the city would have, what was it, 6 months of reserve?
Policies, not.
Yeah, a policy. City had a policy of having a reserve in case an emergency happened, we would have some. Those reserves were extremely low. Well, one of them specifically, the electric reserve was not being kept up. Part of the budgeting that we did this year was to account for that, and some of the increases that you saw this year were to try to assist funding of that, including but not limited to the service availability fee that is paid, that goes to that fund. That way, in case something like February 2021 happens again, we would have the extra funds to cover that without having to take a payment plan out, which is what the city is on currently still. So we are still slightly under, but it did the difference was we had 20,000 in that account or around that, and it was supposed to be at 1.2 something million, I think. So coming from that, having the service utility and then bringing that, we are close, we should be close to the end of the year. We'll be slightly under that still.
Okay, so you'll be short by the end of the year.
Yeah, by the end of the year, we will still be a little short, but it is
Short of your
grown.
goal, correct?
Right.
Okay, short of your goal.
Yeah, we've been building, for the last year and a half, we've been
Building
putting
it.
funds into those reserves to get us where we need to be.
Yeah,
Per
according
policy,
to per our policy.
right, per policy, each of those reserve funds should be 25% of the previous year's
20
operating.
Okay, 25%.
budget.
So 3 months worth of savings, basically.
One more question
Yes, ma'am.
for me, and I'm.
No, it's fine.
And I'm addressing to this, the utility committee itself, and maybe it needs to go to the board at some point, I don't know. But since the hydrovac truck funding came out of the 3 utilities, if I'm correct, I would think it would be, something you might highly consider is doing a cost analysis of this truck. Give it 6 months, give it a year of owning.
Sure.
But we hear now, and I don't have a qualm with understanding that it's cut down on so much time, so on and so forth, and that, okay, we're from the show me state, and I'm one of them that wants to see those numbers. So what is the maintenance on that truck versus, okay, like for instance, last week when it was used, there were 7 people at that site. How many people, and I understand it cut down on those people that were needed, so would have been 14 people that needed to be there? There were 7 people at that job site, it's on video, and only 3 even had hard hats on. So I would like to see whether you need to bring it before the board or you guys request the information in a period of time. What is the hour usage of that truck? How many employees per use were used? If it's cutting down on the time, then we should have that time to fix those fire hydrants. Where's the extra time going? That type of thing.
Sure. Yeah,
I mean, that was not a cheap purchase.
yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, we could try to look into those numbers and see what it would have taken, time and effort of how many, what were the man hours before and after for
Yeah.
a standard dig out versus what the truck uses for a
It's like
standard dig out.
64 man hours in one day.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
something like
So
that,
that-
yeah,
that
so
would be-
additional, so we can extrapolate that out, how many, if we take a look at, the thing is, I don't have a lot of the numbers in front of me,
Right,
obviously.
I understand,
And
I'm
we
just
could try to
saying it
get
would
some of
be,
that stuff
this committee is
Yeah.
the one that spent that money on those 3 utilities. I'd
Yeah.
like to know if it actually does pay for itself.
Sure.
And in the cost, in the manpower, whatever. But there were 7 there at that time, and, we had a bucket truck and we had a dump truck there. So I don't know how much of that work over exceeded what that actual hydrovac truck, would they have used the same equipment?
Yeah.
Let's get some
And-
information to the public.
And it may take a little bit of time to
Sure,
even that
well,
out,
I'm not
because
expecting-
there's time frames where there's gonna be people, seeing how it works as well, and on the job training and stuff like that, and maybe doing some shadowing of that, so there's
Absolutely.
those kind, but I will see if we can, we'll try to come up with a plan.
Okay, that's why I'm bringing it to the utilities, you
Sure.
guys, it
I
came
think
out of
would
this
be bad to
budget.
Try to figure out like how much we could actually, you know, how much we were actually saving, if any.
Right.
So,
So, what'd you say, Kathy?
yeah, it will take time, it's not something that we'll get in one or 2 months though.
I knew
So,
that.
especially down a public works director. Well, with an interim. Yeah.
I mean,
You're managing 2 departments right now, so it may take a little bit of extra time to try to get
Right,
some.
and I would think you'd have to do it at least a 6 months, maybe a year.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have data on that usage of the truck in just a month. That's not what I'm saying, but you need to give somebody heads up to start keeping track of this information.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to any kind of maintenance costs, cause I don't know what those, you know, in the grand scheme of things, what the cost of those are off the top of my head, so, okay.
I was watching one of those work in Arnold, Missouri for the last 4 days. That's a tremendously complicated piece of equipment. And the number of people that were there in Arnold working across the street, I would say there was 3 trucks, a backhoe, and probably, there was at least 7, if not 8 or 9 people there. So, and that was probably an experienced crew. So, but they did say it saved a tremendous amount of time, because I went out and talked to them, I was interested in it. And they did say it saved the city of Arnold considerable. And I think they rented that truck. And I think he told me it was $6,000 a day to rent that truck.
We bought one.
Yeah. Well, they were, he told me what the cost was. I mean, they're an expensive truck for sure.
Are there any other, questions, comments? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.
I was on the meter. And 2